This video is going to be about how to upload a listing into Command, an under contract listing. So this will start, you'll have tasks: upload listing docs to Office, upload under contract docs to Office. My personal preference when I'm doing this is to open the actual transaction and view the tasks through there. So let's get started. The two systems that you're going to need for this is DotLoop. When you first log in, this is what it's going to look like, and also Command. And when you log in, this is where you'll be on Command. The property that we are going to work on is 251 Parker Mountain Road in Barrington. And here, so we're going to pull that up, 251 Parker Mountain Road. Again, I am also going to be teaching how to organize DotLoop and how to check a file for compliance. That's already been done on this transaction, so this is what it'll look like once that's been done. But over here in Command, so the first step is going to be to create the opportunity. When you create an opportunity, I'll show you right here. So this little handshake right here, this is opportunities. When you create an opportunity, one of the required fields is going to be the client. In this case, we have actually already added this client to our database just from a prior opportunity because she's buying and selling with us. In most cases, that won't be the situation because we don't use Command for anything more than we have to, so our database is not in here. So normally you're going to have to add a contact. Unfortunately, you can't do that through opportunities. So a lot of times I'll go in and I'll start the opportunity and then I'll get to the part where I have to add a contact and then I realize I didn't do that. So I have to get out of it and then go create the contact and start over again. So always try and remember to add the contact first. You're going to do that right here. This is the contacts section. Lindsay Letourneau is the one who we're adding a contact for, but if you needed to add a contact, you would click right here, add contact. You would type in their name, and then hit create. You actually don't have to put in any of their contact information. And again, because we don't use this as our database, I don't put in any contact information. I just put in the name. So that's how you create a contact. Once you have the contact created, you go to the opportunities, which is again that handshake. And then you're going to go to create opportunity. And this field comes up. So Market Center is always going to stay as Portsmouth. Team is always going to stay as the Zola Realty Group. Here is where you're going to pick if it's a listing or a buyer, which you can tell from the loop itself. Right here it says listing for sale, and if it's a buyer, it will say purchase. So this is the listing opportunity. Owner can just stay as the default. I think it's usually me. The options are me or Mark, and either one is fine. We're both team owners. And then client is going to be where you put in the name of the client that you just added. So for this case, it's Lindsay Letourneau. If you are not sure who it is, you can always go into the loop. You can see who the buyer and the sellers are down here in this section. So our seller is our client. We've got Lindsay in there. There are two sellers in this situation, but you're only required to put one into Command. So again, we don't do more than we need to in Command, so we can just do the one. If you didn't see anything down here for some reason, like maybe the clients don't have email, so they're not in DotLoop, you can always go to the listing agreement or the buyer agreement for a buyer, and the client's names, the buyer or the seller, should be listed towards the top of that agreement. So right here, Brendan Letourneau and Lindsay Letourneau. So we're going to go back over here. We've got Lindsay as the client. For the opportunity name, we name it the same as the loop. So we can you can actually just come in here and copy and then paste over here. I personally like to include the zip code, probably because I'm crazy. And I happen to know the zip code for Barrington off the top of my head. So that's the loop name, or the opportunity name rather. So for estimated close date, this is not a required field, but you do need to add it later in the transaction, so you can just do it up front and save some effort down the road. That is going to be here on the executed purchase and sale. That's what this stands for, executed purchase and sale agreement. And transfer of title is going to be what the closing date is. So that's 6/15. We'll go over here, we will add 6/15. For commission rate, that one is a required field. What you're going to do on a listing to look at the commission rate, you are going to click on this under contract listing form, and you're going to click on the listing agreement. So we're going to open those up. Okay, so the first thing we need to look at is the listing agreement. So the listing agreement says that this listing was taken at 5.5%. So that means the seller is going to pay 5.5% when their home sells. The next part is you're going to look at the listing agreement, and right here, what will the commission be on this transaction? This is where the listing agent is telling us how that 5.5% is being split up. So in this case, it was selected that it's going to be split 50-50, which means both sides will get 2.75%. I think most of these options are self-explanatory. Sometimes we'll take a 6% listing, and it might be that we're going to keep 3.5 and we're going to pay out 2.5. It might be that it's another KW Coastal agent and we're going to split 50-50. It might be a non-KW Coastal agent, which is the case here, and we're splitting 50-50. Sometimes we'll get a listing that's more than 6%, and it will be, sometimes we'll get a listing that's more than 6%, and this will be selected. And then sometimes we'll get a weird amount, like actually the 5.5%, where we're paying out 2.5 and we're keeping what's in the middle. So those are the different options. And again, it's really just going to depend on what's selected in each situation. Excuse me. But here, again, it's split 50-50, and we know the total commission is 5.5, which means both sides will get 2.75. So we're going to go over here. We're going to put in 2.75 for the commission. The commission here is only pertaining to what our team is receiving. It's not the full commission for the transaction. It's just our portion. So 2.75 here. This opportunity phase right here is really not important. I'll generally change it to active, but we're gonna switch it as soon as we save this anyways. So, and then assignees, you can just leave it listing coordinator because Mark and I have access to everything automatically. Although now that I think about it, you should also add transaction coordinator because Rachel needs to be able to see it as well. So we're gonna hit create. Once you have here the general information, you're going to hit the pen. And here is where you can make additional changes. So there's a couple fields that we need to do. We need to update the opportunity phase to be under contract, which will automatically update the stage. And we need to add the contract date and the close date. Those are not listed as required, but again, they're necessary for other things later down the road, so we do have to get that in there. The contract date and the close date will both be on the executed purchase and sale. Right here, the effective date is the contract date, and again, transfer of title is the close date. So the contract date is going to be 5/17, and the close date is going to be that 6/15 date. I'm not really sure why they have this twice, but they're both used for different things, so both of those need to be filled out. So we're going to hit save there, and then here we have to add the property. So it's United States. The address is 251 Parker Mountain Road, and it auto-filled the rest of it for us. So we can just hit save. So that is all on this particular field. Next, we can skip the seller profile. We don't do anything there. Next, we're going to go to documents. And then here, you're going to pick checklist type. It is only going to show you listing checklist options because we told it when we created the opportunity that this was a listing. So this is a New Hampshire listing. And here it will load the different checklists. These are all placeholders, and the required ones all have to have a file associated with them. So you can see this is going to be the listing documents. This is going to be the under contract documents. And then once it closes, we'll be putting the closed docs here. So we are going to go back to DotLoop. Again, this has already been reviewed and organized, so it should be in pretty good shape. Our office requires everything to be uploaded individually as individual documents. So this particular property was actually a little bit of an interesting one. It is one property that is being sold. However, there were 3 different property cards and 3 different tax maps and 3 different tax bills because it's 3 parcels on 1 deed. So there's only 1 deed, but there's 3 of everything else. So in order to get everything uploaded, a lot of this is going to be required, but you can see, you can always go back and forth and check. If it was listed in MLS, which almost all of ours are, an MLS sheet is going to be required, and you can see the list of all the other required documents here. I kind of know them off the top of my head, so I'll go through them on the other screen, but this is where you would check. If it's required, that's where you can see whether or not you need to get something from DotLoop. So an active MLS sheet is required, and the original deed is required. LA stands for listing agreement. The WFA, that's the wire fraud agreement. AVR, that's the audio visual release. The BRD is the brokerage relationships disclosure. PD is the property disclosure. And then for here, for the property card, because there are 3 of them, I'm gonna check off all 3 and hit download. And you'll see that when DotLoop downloads them like that, it downloads as multiple documents. So I'm just going to rename this because we're going to have to do that multiple times. So we got the property card. Now we need the tax map. Again, check off all 3 and hit download. And then I'm going to rename that so I know it's the tax map. And then here we've got the tax bill and doing the same thing. Okay, so we have all those downloaded. The utility form and the new listing form are not Market Center required forms, so we don't put those into command. So once I have everything downloaded, then I go back over to command, and this is where I start uploading it. So we're going to click on attach multiple files, and then select each item. So we've got the MLS sheet. So you're just matching up the documents with what their placeholder is. Listing agreement. Visual. Here is wire fraud and property disclosure. You can see here that there are some documents that are optional, or not really optional, but conditional. So if a property disclosure rider is going to be required on like a condo or something with a homeowners association, this one is not. We don't have it. Multifamily, excuse me. That's going to be required on multifamily properties, which again, not applicable in this case. And lead paint is required on any property that's built prior to 1978, which this house is not. So those are not required in this situation. The property card, we're going to go back. This is required, and those are those documents that we downloaded. So we've got the tax bill, and we've got the tax map. Once you have all, you can see the rest of this stuff is all conditional. Once you have everything attached here and assigned to its placeholder, you're going to click attach. And then unfortunately, command is kind of glitchy sometimes. So sometimes something will not attach. So you just want to review real quick to make sure everything that's required has a document attached. And it looks like this one worked just fine. So once everything is uploaded like that, oh, you can also always upload one file at a time if that's your preference. You would just click here to add a file. Same thing, browse to attach, and then select the document. I like to do multiple at a time. I think it's faster. So, but you do have both options. You'll see over here that the status was changed to uploaded for everything that we uploaded a file to. And that status is going to be important in the next step. So once you have it uploaded, we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit submit. So you want to see submission successful, and you want to see that this changed to submitted. We're going to go back over here to Brivity really quick. And we're going to check off right here, upload listing docs to Office. We've done that. And we're going to refresh because there should be a follow-up task to that. Maybe. It is being very cranky and not wanting. To create. Fail to create. So that's something I'm going to have to talk to Brivity about because it happened on the last one too. Once you hit upload and check that off as done, it should give you a task to submit as well, which you're also going to want to check off. But it's really important that both the uploading and the submitting steps happen. All right, so we're going to go back here. We've done the listing docs. Now we need to do the under contract docs. For the under contract docs on a listing, actually a little bit less is required than on a buyer because we've already uploaded a lot of those docs to the listing side. On this side, really all they need to see is anything that the buyer are also signed. So we don't need to do an MLS sheet in this folder, but we do need to send them the executed purchase and sale. And actually, I'm going to go in here and clean out my downloads since we're working on a new folder now. We need to download the purchase and sale. They need a copy of the earnest money, and then the property disclosure, which was also signed by the buyer. That's actually all they're going to need on this file that's required. So we're going to go over here, again, attach multiple files just like we did before. We're going to attach the purchase and sale. You can see all of this is conditional. If there were addendums that had important information on them, like a change to the close date or a change to the purchase price, we would want to upload those, but we don't have any addendums in this case. So we'll go right here. We need the first escrow check. There will always be at least one escrow check. Sometimes there will be two or more, but right here we just have the one, and that one is required. And then we have the property disclosure right here. Scrolling through, you can see that's actually all that is required on a listing. So we're going to click attach. We see that all three things that we tried to attach actually worked. They've changed over here to uploaded, and now we can hit submit. Again, submit. And this right here has changed to submitted. So I'm suspecting that the reason, we're going to go back to Brivity and check off upload under contract docs. I'm suspecting that the reason that the next task isn't triggering is because I've bumped these tasks a few times because I hadn't gotten to them yet, and I wanted to make sure I recorded the video. So I'm assuming that's why they're not triggering, but I'm going to talk to Brivity support when they open today. So that is done. That is submitted. The next step is, and it's usually going to take probably 10 days to 2 weeks. And I believe, if I remember correctly, so this task, the task that I'm about to talk about, isn't going to trigger because the submit trigger task isn't triggering. And the next task, which is check and make sure that the files are marked compliant, is contingent on that task that isn't triggering. So if I remember correctly, this task is contingent on submit listing docs to Office. This triggers, I think, like 7 to 10 days. Or so once you've checked off, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Once you've checked off submit under contract or submit listing docs, there's this task, which is under contract docs approved by Office or listing docs approved by Office, which is contingent on those submit tasks. This triggers, I believe, 7 to 10 days after the file has been submitted. So once you see this task pop up, making sure that the tasks or the opportunities have been approved, you're going to go into command, you're going to check this. If it's been reviewed, if it hasn't been reviewed, it'll still say submitted, and then you would just bump the task to the next day and check again. But this task, if it's been reviewed, this will either be changed to a green accepted badge, or it will be red and it will say rejected. If it says rejected, you'll click on it, and whatever document has been rejected should be marked as such. So you'll see some documents marked approved and you'll see some that are marked rejected. And it should have notes as to why it was rejected at that point that will have come from the office. So in those cases, if it's approved, if it's green and it's approved, these folders, then you're good. You would just go in and you would check off that under contract docs approved or the listing docs approved task. If it is not, if it's red and something was rejected, then you're going to come in here and you're going to need to create a new task. You're going to call it compliance. It's going to be a high priority and it's going to be assigned to the transaction coordinator, who is Rachel right now. And then you're going to put in notes, and you're going to list everything that was rejected from the file. So, say the purchase in sales missing initials on page 3, and say the property disclosure is missing a signature. Oops. You're going to put that into the notes so that Rachel knows what is actually wrong with the file, and so she can take care of it, and then you're going to hit save. In this case, I'm going to hit cancel because I don't actually need to create the task, but that is how that's how the communication over to Rachel, so she knows something needs to be fixed, is going to happen. So once you've entered that compliance task, you're going to bump the task for making sure that the file is approved. You're going to bump that out, a couple days, for instance. Because obviously we're going to need to get the corrections made and we're going to need to get them back into command before this is going to get approved. But we want to make sure that we don't forget to get it approved. So we're not going to check that off until it actually is approved. So that is how that process works. That is everything in command. That's how you get something submitted. And if you have any questions about this, let me know.